First thing I want to do is thank the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame and Jack Hines and Dave Mills and Bob Callett for offering us this opportunity to get together and renew old acquaintances and reminisce about the past. We all like to do that, share memories. The format for tonight, as Dave said, is there'll be some opening remarks by the panel that I'll introduce in a second. And then we'll open it up to anyone that has anything they want to throw out for stories of the past to reminisce about the good old days. Sitting here on the panel, let's see, I'll start on my far right. Member of the class of 1960, a three-sport athlete at St. Anthony's High School and a captain, and a member of the team that lost in the championship game in 1960, Maury Laverna. To my right, immediate right, is a member of the class of 55, and a member of the 1953 small New England Small Catholic High School championship team that won tournament up in Portland, Maine, Tom Burke. To my immediate left is a member of the class of 1960 and another three-sport athlete and someone most of you know, well known in Bristol and in Hartford, Bob Fiodella. And to Bob's left is one of the better athletes in St. Anthony's history, three-sport athlete, baseball, basketball, and soccer, American Legion player, state championship team in 1962, Phil Manarino. Before I turn it over to the panel for their hopefully brief 5-minute or less remarks, there's one little subject I want to touch on. We're all aware of the history of St. Anthony sports and some of the championship teams and some of the better athletes. But I think one of the things that we should all be most proud of is the contributions that some of these guys, including the ones here at the head table, have made to the city of Bristol over the years. It's really something to ponder over. And let me give you a couple examples. The guy on the right, Maury Laverna, has been a member of the hospital board, still on the public works board, longtime member of the OMs, longtime member of the Boys and Girls Club board, and certainly one of the driving forces behind the effort to build the brand new Boys and Girls Club on West Street. So Maury has been a major contributor to the city of Bristol since graduating high school in 1960, as has this guy, Bob Fiodella, who chaired the campaign for that building on the Boys and Girls Club building on West Street. Bob brought in a lot of money, not only from Bristol, but from out of town to help make that campaign successful. Bob also chaired the campaign to build the Giamatti Little League Center and served on the city council, if I remember correctly. So we're all very proud of Bob. And of course, unfortunately not able to be here is another former councilman, Mike Władysławski, who you all know. And of course, Mike was a lifelong consumer advocate and just loved helping people over the years. Other former athletes that have given back greatly to the city are people like Dick Lamothe, who served, I think, 15 to 20 years as the chairman of the finance board, which is an incredible stint because it's so time-consuming and difficult. Gerard Kuchar seated out in the audience, multiple terms as a city councilman and former mayor. Irk Labadia in the front row, local community activist, served as treasurer for many boards, a longtime member of the OMs. And then we have some excellent educators who molded youth in the city. Fran Sarator is here, Tony Lavdico, both of them won state championships at St. Paul's High School, and Tony taught there his entire career. Fran went on to be a principal at Naugatuck High School, so we're very proud of Fran also. And Phil Manarino, longtime teacher over at Plainville High School and coach at Bristol Eastern. Yeah, you're middle school. Okay. Taught middle school. So we're proud of, and those are just the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. So we're very proud of the accomplishments of those people. All right, now to turn it over to the panel, I'd like to introduce Bob, to give you a brief overview on the history of St. Anthony's High School, and let's see if he can do it in 5 minutes or less.
Have you ever heard a lawyer speak in less than 5 minutes? You'll notice that when he introduced everybody, he mentioned their exploits in sports until he came to me. He just said I played on 3 teams. No championships, nothing. Well, that's because I was good enough to play, but never good enough to hold the position. John asked me to give a little bit of a background of the school itself. This is the Bristol Historical Society. This is not going to be history. This is going to be lore. What we believe about how the school started and what it came to be. The person who was really dominant in the history of the school was Father Settimo Crudele. I think he was the 7th child, that's Settimo. He became a priest later in life. He was a Singer sewing machine salesman. The Archbishop told him he could not become a priest because he was too old. And the history, what we were told is he memorized the Divine Comedy and went back in and became a priest. Father had a vision, and his vision was there should be a place for immigrants' kids or grandkids to go to a school where they were nurtured and in many ways protected. So he started St. Anthony's Grammar School. He then that became successful, and he then wanted a high school. And supposedly the Archbishop said no. He got no financial support from any of the other parishes, although he did get teaching support. So he started it. We were occupied an old factory, Vita Road, that had been used during the Second World War, was then abandoned, and I think Joe Vetrano was involved in helping them buy it. They converted the top floor into what you could describe as classrooms with nice floors. The cafeteria, they didn't redo the floor, it was still grease. There was no air conditioning. We had no ball field, and we had no gym. We went to the boys club for phys ed, and we used to practice soccer, I think, at Mosley Field. Yeah. Baseball, sometimes we practiced behind McCabe Waters Field. Sometimes we played all of our basketball games at the Polish Club. And you remember that was a roller skating floor? And so the floor was right on cement. So the odds are you were going to get shin splints, which we had. We had an old bus that I think was third hand. And I think Dave Sircone and Danny Valerio drove the bus. We had very interesting phys ed teachers. Harry Peters was, I think, the athletic director, but he coached baseball and then later coached soccer. Well, we had Frank Longo, who was basketball coach both in grammar school and then high school, and John made the grammar school team, in 3rd grade or 2nd? 3rd grade. Frank had a group of 3rd graders that he started, and they took trips to Boston Garden, Madison Square Garden, played at halftime. He was a tremendous promoter of the sport. I mean, we played at the Polish Club, there would be 2,000 people at most games. And they'll tell you all the stories. The only thing I'd mention, as I finish this up, is what Father Crudele taught us is there isn't anything you can't do if you want to. It was the little engine that could. And his philosophy was you do what you can with what you have where you are. There was no tuition if you were in the parish. If you're outside the parish, I think it was $100 or $150.
Started at 75.
At 75, if you could afford it. If you couldn't afford it, you still came. So it created a can-do attitude that found its way into the way we play every sport. Because in basketball, I think you can count on one hand the number of kids we had who were over 6 feet. But yet we play Litchfield and Suffield. They were 6'5", 6'2". I mean, everybody was tall. But I don't remember a team that was daunted when they got on the court. So I think you'll see that's why he sort of infused that attitude without us knowing it. And I think people just were not afraid of anything. I think that's enough.
Thanks, Bob. And now I'll turn it over to Tom, who will talk about the early to mid-50s when he was there.
First thing I'd like to do is thank you all for coming. Without your participation in events like this would not be successful. Why don't you all give yourself a nice clap? The second thing I'd like to do is remind all your husbands that this Sunday is Mother's Day. And I wish all you mothers in the audience a very happy Mother's Day. Now we'll get down. I transferred from Bristol High my freshman year to St. Anthony's. I have two impressions. Number one, St. Anthony's was family. In the whole high school, there were probably 108 students. So you knew every student by name. That was special. The other special thing, which I really enjoyed, was playing time. Anyone that ever played sports, it's about playing time. That's the only way you're going to get better. I was fortunate enough to start on the varsity as a freshman. Our freshman team beat Bristol High freshman team, and they had a good team. They had Henry Gaskey and Bill Blasky, both very tall, both very good. What that did was to generate an awful lot of interest in the city. It was wonderful for St. Paul's, it was good for the city, and at that point it was bad for Bristol High. The rematch occurred at Bristol High School in the old Memorial Boulevard, and we played in their gym. Just before the game started, I happened to look up. The stands were full. There was no room there. And they beat us, but it took overtime. The game went to overtime. That was our freshman team. Our varsity team, I think John mentioned this before, won the New England Championship for small Catholic high schools. Big plus for St. Anthony's. We just started, freshman year, for me anyway. I'm going to get a little selfish right now. I don't recall any other St. Anthony team beating a Bristol High team.
Wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Like I said, I'm probably wrong.
So I'll try to.
Bristol High, not Bristol High. You're right, you're probably the only that beat a Bristol High.
Bristol High team.
Yeah.
But the soccer team won.
No, I'm talking basketball. Let me clarify. Bristol is a basketball city. Okay? I don't like baseball. I played, but I don't like it. So anything I talk about is going to be basketball. Except I'll talk about soccer. No, I'm old. You have to respect me. The St. Anthony's victory for New England Catholic schools, I believe that is the only championship that a St. Anthony team ever won. So we have a double bubble. We beat Bristol High. I don't think anyone else did. We won a championship. I don't think any other team did. And we laid the foundation for the basketball program at St. Anthony's High School. Now, John, thank you. I want to talk about soccer. I want to talk about soccer. In our junior year, St. Anthony's introduced the soccer program to the athletic program. And if you play sports, most sports deal with a ball. And the ball is a tool. You make that ball work for you. Well, our soccer ball had a brain, and he didn't go along with that. You're probably all familiar with the chasing of the bulls in Spain. That was our soccer team. We come on the field. We had 3 students from Italy, and they grew up playing soccer. Vinny and Tony Guada and Rocco Negri. And all they said that whole soccer season was, no, no, no. We charged down the field like the charge of the light brigade, then we come back up the other way. And most sports have penalties. Soccer has penalties. We excelled at penalties. And the referee in the soccer has these little cards, and they're all different colors. So our favorite color was for roughness. Unnecessary roughness. We collected a lot of those cards. And I can honestly say the soccer team did not lay the foundations for future soccer teams. But the soccer team program went on and they were very successful. And I don't think I ever enjoyed the sport so much as I enjoyed that first soccer team. Vinny probably lost a...
No, I wasn't there with you. You were, I think it was a freshman. When did you graduate?
55.
55? I was there.
Yeah, you were one of the no-nos. I know. 54 was on that team. I can tell you.
54 to 58.
My boss says, okay. Okay, Jim.
Thank you. All right, to set the record straight, the 1953 New England Championship team was the first year that there was seniors at the school. The first graduating class was 1953, so it was the first graduating class, 1953, when they won that championship. The first varsity victory over a Bristol high school team was made by the 1957 St. Anthony's soccer team.
Oh, soccer team.
At the Boulevard.
At the one with that. Right.
And the first basketball victory over a Bristol public high school team was by the 1961 St. Anthony's basketball team. The year after Maury and Bob graduated, the 61 team beat the Central team.
They won flags.
Yeah, until...
They were not scheduled again.
That was Eastern or Central, not Bristol.
Yeah, no, it was Bristol Central, it wasn't Bristol High, right.
Just for the record.
Yeah, no, right. It was Bristol Central. And, well, just for the record, that same year, the St. Anthony's baseball team beat Bristol Central also. Oh, and we won't talk about the game that was played at Muzzy Field between St. Anthony's baseball team and the Bristol Eastern team. When Phil Manrino was a freshman, got the only hit that night for St. Anthony's against yes, it is. Against Jack Castellini. And St. Anthony's lost by a lopsided score because 5 or 6 guys had gotten suspended for drinking at his stag party for somebody who's sitting in the front row tonight. And now we'll ask Maury Lavero to say a few words about some of the coaches that he played for at St. Anthony's High School. Maury.
Well, before I talk about the coaches, I want to talk about Mike Boguslavsky. We go down to the Pines and see him, and me and John were there Tuesday. And, I mean, you can have some really good laughs if you go down and talk to Mike Boguslavsky. So if anybody gets a chance, he would love to see anybody go down there just to talk to him. And I gotta think that he is probably the best athlete that I ever played with. And, you know, I could swear by that. He was just fantastic. You know, Billy Roccanello was the best shooter in basketball. I spent 3 years sitting on the bench watching him shoot. But beside that, he was fantastic. So, but you think of a small Catholic high school and the coaches we had. You take Frank Longo, I say it to this day, nobody could teach fundamentals about basketball like Frank Longo. He was unbelievable, unbelievable. And then Harry Peters comes along, Porky Vieira comes along. Porky was like, well, he's got the best record in Division II baseball in the country right now. He was just fantastic. And even the girls, we got Brenda Joyce. We didn't have a lot of, Brenda Riley and Joan Joyce. I mean, Joan Joyce was probably 20 years ahead of her time. That's how good she was. She was fantastic. So, for a little school, we didn't do too bad for himself. And then we got another coach for St. Anthony's. He was a JV coach. His name was Maury Lavero. And I coached for a couple of years, and I'm pretty proud of something. I coached two guys that are here tonight, Franz Zerator and Mr. Freemuth. And if you check their records out, they're unbelievable. I don't know, Bob's got what, 4 or 5 state championships. Franz Zerator got a state championship in basketball. So St. Anthony's got a little history with coaching. Roland Dumont's not here, and he was my freshman coach. So you can go on and on about the coaches, but getting back to Bugsy, we tried to get him here tonight, and he's doing pretty good. He's got all his marbles, I'll tell you. And he puts these luncheons on. I don't know how he does it. And they're unbelievable, like Kuchers could tell you, and we go to them. So if you get a chance, go down and see Mike Boguslavsky. Thank you.
Just to tell you how Mike still has his marbles and how funny he can be. We're sitting there talking on Tuesday afternoon, and these two guys are going at it, talking about their team in 1960. And Mike's talking about the championship game at UConn. He says, I'm coming down the lane, I'm going to the basket, I see a lane to the basket. He's standing over on the right wanting the ball, he wants the ball. What am I going to give it to him for? He was 4'3". Okay, to wrap up the panel discussion, in 5 minutes or less.
Wow, my God, come on.
Fill me in, Rena.
Thanks, John. Thank you. I was going to say a lot, but I have to cut it down quite a bit, right, John? Okay.
Yes.
I have the I was fortunate to play 3 sports at St. Anthony's, and a couple of things stick out in my mind. The very first day I ever showed up for freshman or for soccer as a freshman. Of course, I didn't have any equipment. All I showed up with were sneakers and stuff like that. Well, I think it was Harry Peters. Comes out with this big box about 4 foot by 4 foot with all kinds of shoes in it. They're not together, they're all over the place. They look like World War II Army shoes, okay? Said, all you guys that have sneakers, look in the box, you can take whatever you want. Are you kidding me? I hated running, number one, and these shoes made it more difficult to run. I think I had to use those for 4 years. I don't know whether I ever used the same 2 twice. Freshman year, I had to give it up, luckily, because I had a paper route, okay? And speaking of a paper route, when I was a young lad, on my route, I would read the paper. It was always a sports page. And I would read about these gentlemen right here in the front. And I said to myself, one day when I get older, a lot older, I want to be just like them, as smart as them or as good as them. What are you laughing about? Another thing about about soccer, we actually beat Bristol Central my senior year when Tom Denota had this great idea. Usually in those days we played 5 people up in front, which nowadays is unheard of. 3 in the middle and then 2 in the back. He said we could never compete with Bristol Central the way we were playing it. So we're going to move myself, who was a center forward, supposedly a scorer, back into the middle, and Rit DeVenier, who was a midfielder, back in the back. So more on defense. I felt like saying to Tom, I'm a scorer. I don't need to play defense. Luckily, we beat Bristol Central 1-0 when Dave Power, I don't know if anybody remembers that name, Dave Power, shot a ball from about 40, 45 yards out. It went through the middle, it bounced maybe 15 times and went into the far corner, and then we ended up beating 1-0. Then we go over to Bristol Eastern feeling pretty good. Maybe a week or 2 later, Ooh, that didn't turn out too well. I think they had 5 or 6 to nothing using the same defense. So Tom was great in one game. We were terrible in the other one. In basketball, we were lucky enough to, my senior year, go to the state semifinals down at the Payne Whitney Gym in New Haven. We beat a couple of pretty good teams. One was an undefeated team from Turtlot, another one was a team from Hale Ray. And we ended up losing by 2 in the semifinals, but what a great experience. Bob Dunshee was like the bull of that team. Without him, we would never have gone very, very far. He was everything on that team. In baseball, we almost beat Bristol Eastern, again my senior year. We lost by 1 when an unnamed player got thrown out at home plate for the last out of the game. Darn! Too bad you weren't faster. I had a great experience at St. Anthony's. I loved every single minute of it. I'm convinced in my own mind that if I didn't go to Bristol, if I went to Bristol Central, probably wouldn't have gotten the opportunity that I had at St. Anthony's, so I'm forever happy.
Very good.
I just want to make one more point, and then we'll open it up for discussion, so that it doesn't, this doesn't, it doesn't get missed. There were 3 high school all-state basketball players that came out of St. Anthony's High School. And as you might expect, their last names all ended in a vowel, as you would expect, right? The first one was Billy Roccanello, class of 1959. He was All-State. And then the following year, there were 2 more All-Staters whose names ended in vowels. Mike Boguslavsky and Ed Berlinski. That ends in a vowel. So we had 3 All-Staters in 2 successive years, 59 and 60. So with that, we're going to throw it open to a discussion on the floor and ask anyone who wants to kick it off with a story or an experience, please. You didn't even go to St. Anthony's High School,
I left after 2 years.
All right, stand up.
Along with the person that Stan mentioned. I know it was an unfortunate oversight, but you have an educator here with tremendous accolades in terms of his coaching accomplishments. Tony Carrier.
Tony, stand up when you're ready. Thank you for that, Tony.
And I didn't know the coach. I would have mentioned his name.
Who, Tony? Yeah. I think he coached soccer. He coached soccer. Does that count? Who else would like to make a comment? Yes, Jerry.
Talked about Father Cordelia, who had the vision. Another integral part of St. Anthony Sports was Father Danetta.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, he
First
was,
athletic.
he was a director of athletics, and he just gave his whole heart and soul to the athletic program. Drove us around, did everything he could to support it. In 1953, when we went to Portland, I had the pleasure, I was in 6th grade. My folks volunteered to be chaperones for the cheerleaders. We had this big old station wagon, right? We piled everybody in the station wagon. We drove up and we took rooms in Kennebunk, which was just a few miles south of Portland. So we got to shuttle them back and forth to the games. And what a tournament that was. Oh my God. Rudy Fazio, Tommy Burke with his sweetheart jump shot. And, Dickie, were you on that team? Were you there?
Yeah, Brad.
We had a cup. Brett was there in 1953 in Portland. But it was so exciting to be there and chaperone them, and it was just a great, great experience.
Jerry, before you sit down, did you have a story about going to the championship game or one of the games at UConn in 1960 with a big bass drum?
I always had the big bass drum.
And-
I used to go to the games and play the drum that we used in the title parade. And so one year, we all got in my 1950 Plymouth. We drove to the UConn game, and a bunch of us, and I had never been there before. But Tony Ludovico said, now I know the way, I'll tell you how to get there, right? So we're driving down 84, and we get off at exit 68, and we're heading towards UConn, and he says, it's right here, it's on the left. And we turned in, And I drove in the parking lot, and there were a few cars there, but not a lot, I thought, for, big championship game. So we go walking up to the door, and I got the drum, and the guys got their hats, and we were all getting ready for this big thing. We walk in, and he says, "But here, Tony, you sure this is the right place?" Yeah, come on, the gym's right over here. So we go in the gym, and there's all these kids sitting on the floor, and we're making noise for singing at these. And it was the Mansfield training hall for You never saw anybody run so fast.
Yeah, Tony's kid used to call him Magellan because he was so good with direction.
Jerry mentioned jump shot.
Yes.
Well, you could not take a jump shot until 1960.
Correct.
It was either a two-hand set shot,
Yeah.
one-hand push, or a layup.
Okay.
And you would get benched if you took a jump shot. It was okay to miss the layup as long as you had good form.
I have something to say.
Yes, Tom.
I wonder how many games we might have won if way back then we had 3-point shots with Billy Roccanello.
Oh. Billy might have held the state scoring record if there was a 3-point shooting line back then. Yeah, good point.
Well, his senior year, we went, 26-0, and then lost 3 out of 4 at the end, when you were a senior.
There's got to be a record for Gerard Kucher getting thrown out of games.
Soccer or basketball? Both. They're picking on him.
Bob, did you play for Frank when you had to take a foul shot when you played well? We used to have to do the foul shots underhand.
Oh, that was in grammar school.
We could, he taught us how to shoot underhand.
He just told us to shoot underhand. He said,
Dolph Shays used to do it.
Bunny Levitt.
Top at it.
And Rick Barry.
Remember Bunny Levitt came to St. Anthony's? He had a record for consecutive foul shots, and he shot.
Yeah.
Okay, let me throw out a, yes, Jack.
John, just for those of you that knew Porky Vieira, just a Porky Vieira story. I was doing the clock over at Trinity College. Porky came in to referee the game. So I said to him, Porky, a number of years ago, I saw you here at Trinity get 26 points against the Minneapolis Lakers. He looked at me, he said 28.
Nobody could shoot the ball like he could.
He had 100 points in one game. He was playing semi-pro.
Okay, here's a trivia question for you. Who was the first and who was the last athletic sweater winners at St. Anthony's High School? First and last athletic sweater winners.
Last was probably Frank.
Yep.
Frankie Guzwicki.
No. The last one was France Ferrator. And the first was, that's right, Dick Lamont was the first, class of 53. Fazio was class of 54 with her.
Dick Lamont?
Yeah, no, Ruby was a year.
No, I thought it was going to be Tony Serino.
No, it was Lamont, because he was in the first graduate class, 53. Okay, who else would like to share something with us?
We used to play Fisher's Island. That was So, long ago, he said we had some cars, I was gonna drive a car, and he had to deliver some packages, make some deliveries. So he's telling me, you're gonna drive, I had like 4 guys in the car. We had 3 cars. Longo's driving, he says, all right, you're gonna go 55 miles an hour, you're gonna take this route, I'm gonna go here, going 70 miles an hour, I'm gonna meet you in the middle of London, blah, 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 this, that, at such and such a time. Okay, drive the car, we get there, there's this car parked there. I'm like 2 minutes late, all right? And he's not in the car, other car, I go in the car, where's the coach? He's calling the police. What do you mean he's calling the police? He's got a police looking up for you, where the heck you work? Right here. We go to Fisher's Island, and we missed the boat, right? We missed the boat. So he goes to Coast Guard Academy. He knew Otto Graham. Otto Graham was the director of athletics. So we got a Coast Guard cutter. And we're taking the boat over to Fisher's Island. I've never been in a Coast Guard cutter. It's like a box. Right? You're a box.
Because of bad weather. Bad weather. Frank, bad weather. That's why they didn't have, they were
bad weather.
the ferry.
All right, the ferry won't go. All right. So One by one, somebody gets up, they go into the bathroom with the boat over there, they turn green. They come back one by one. I'm looking at Coach Longo, and his tie's off, his face is green. Everybody but one player didn't get sick. Mike Pesson's.
That's why he's breathing?
He's sitting, and this is no lie, it's like a cartoon. He's sitting at the table, reading a book, and I know the book. Bob Cousy. And the thing go like he's focused on the book, he never got sick. Fisher's Island.
Well, the 1960 team got sick on the way to Fisher's Island. Did you not?
Coming home, they got sick. I wasn't at that game. My brother got married. And everybody got sick, and we played Stonington, and they beat us. I think
That was the first loss.
Yeah, that was our first loss, I think. And then we got beat by Hill House by 9 points that year. So we had a good team.
Yeah, there was a year when Frank scheduled the previous year's 3 state championship teams. Hill House, Plainville, and Bloomfield. Maybe you were around 61 or 60. Around 61 or 62. They played 3 state champions from the previous year. Who else would like to?
One of the other trips to Fisher's Island, the ferry was shut down for the trip home because of the storm coming up. So my father was in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, called, made a couple of phone calls, got us on the cutter to come back to New England that year. So that's a lot of adventure with those Fisher's Island trips. It was nice. We used to get to stay over the night before and stay in some of the homes, beautiful homes that the people had over there. It was really an adventure.
Well, there was only 12, at least the year I went, there were only 12 students in the high school. There were 7 boys and 5 girls. And the 7 boys split between varsity and JV. And the gym, this ceiling is probably higher than it was. And the basket was against the wall. If you hit the wall on the way up, it didn't count. But, you know, that was the genius of Frank. He was a marketeer. I mean, his teams every year went to Fisher's Island. When grammar school, they went to Madison Square Garden, Boston Garden. Claire B. was the coach of LIU.
LIU.
And remember, LIU was the way you tore Arizona apart. No, that's the way you tore man-to-man. We would get layups on man against man-to-man, and they would call timeout and go to zone. A person we should mention is John Duffy. John was, in effect, the faculty manager, advisor of the basketball team, and a lot of us who ended up in politics because of John Duffy. It was John Duffy, it was Bob Vicino, Joe Dinelli, Keith Dubé. They were all, and they became like a funnel. You know, and the meetings were at Frank's sporting goods store around the 2 Dumpy boats that he had for 10 years, where he filed everything. You know, he threw it in.
Who else wants to? Yes, Mike.
This always comes to mind when I think about St. Anthony, the sports program. The class of 1964, they didn't win the basketball championship, but they should have. That year, all the Class C teams on our level, we won. St. Anthony's won. All the Class A and B teams, we lost to them. We didn't qualify. We didn't win at 51% to get into the tournament. But the team, we played one team there, La Salette. We played them on at La Salette. We beat them by just a handful of points, maybe 3 points. The second game we played that year against La Salette was at the Polish Club. And it was a battle back and forth, and it was won on the last second shot. The ball was in the air at the last second, shot by Danny O'Neill. And when it went through, we won the game. And La Salette went on to win the Class C championship that year in 1964. So it's just something to mention.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, Carol.
I just thought while you were talking about Frank Longo, the thing that I remember is being a cheerleader for St. Anthony's. Carter was also, Patty was, and I think Jeannie Hines is here also, right, yeah. So, but I remember this thing about Frank Longo, that he would like dissect all the players after, I just remember listening to him, it was so quite interesting, and his choice of words that he would say. It was very, I enjoyed that part.
It wasn't that interesting.
Well, he was an
He made you
innovator.
laugh. He actually made you laugh at what he was saying, you know?
He broke Bobby Flanagan's foot in practice. Playing one-on-one.
Who did he throw the chair at?
Lewinsky, yes.
Yes. Maury has something to say.
I want to say one other thing. You talked about St. Anthony, a little Catholic high school in Bristol, a little town in Bristol. And we get a CEO of a major company, and he never left the town of Bristol. Not for nothing.
If you keep it brief.
Brief. It's supposed to be about sports. I think the panel would be remiss if we didn't mention St. Anthony's cheerleaders. The whole student body appreciated them, the hard work, the support for the various athletic teams, and a few of them are here, and we thank you very much.
I just have to say this. I remember when we were on the bus, the girls and boys could not sit together. You had to have the girls on one side and the boys on the other. Never, ever.
Speaking of cheerleaders, we were talking to Mike Boguslawski Tuesday. He started on Judy Formagione. That her picture went all over the world from our 1960s. He said, imagine that, we played the game and her picture was in the paper.
Yeah, that picture of her with that awful look on her face in the scoreboard and back with the final score, the clock at 0-0, and her going like this, got on the AP Newswire, and Frank Drzwicki, God rest his soul, was in the service at the time, saw the picture when he was over in Germany, so it did go to various places around the world. The other point we should make in group we should not overlook and pay some homage to are the nuns that serviced that school all those years. When we were, they were teaching in all the grammar school grades and all the high school grades and living in that bandbox convent on Orchard Street. I don't know how they did it. There must have been, 25, 30 of them. And it, some of us had our problems with them and some of us took some lumps from them, but they were dedicated and they had our best interests at heart. So they helped make all of that, all of this history possible as well. Anyone? Yes, Tom.
I got a few things. I haven't given you 5 or 10 minutes. Get over it. I went to school there, of course, in the mid-'60s, but I had to go back to 5th grade because that's when I knew I wanted to go there. There's no doubt in my mind, and I don't know if Randy feels the same way or whatever, but when you see the varsity come to your grammar school game at Mary Callan School, and Frank comes charging in the door at halftime, and the whole varsity's there, I'm like, where are they from? We got to go there, And that, he used to do great things with the trips and all. But getting back to the Fisher's Island, when we went to Fisher's Island, I don't know, we're young kids and we're going to stay in somebody's house overnight. And so they put me, I think it was Mike Ludovico and Vinny DeAndre in the same house. And when we got there, they told us it was haunted. Well, what do you mean haunted? It's haunted. And they said, well, you'll see, but don't worry. It'll be okay. I don't even want to be there now. I want to go home. We were young kids. I was a sophomore at the time. You sit down to dinner, and there's an extra sitting at the plate, and they're talking to somebody that's not the They're putting food in the plate. Meatballs, the mashed potatoes, and gravy. What's some gravy? What's gravy? Okay, this is getting pretty scary. Make a long story short, I asked to use the phone, and I called Coach Longo. He said, I can't stay here. He says, well, you're going to have to sleep on me. Better than staying here. And I swear to God, I slept in the same room as Frank that night, a little bit of snoring going on, but it was better than being in the haunted house. And Vinny wasn't too happy at all, and Mike, I know, Mike still talks about it. But that's a true story. And another funny one that I remember was a baseball game. I was a catcher, and I remember that the bases were loaded, and we were pretty smart guys too. I mean, you know, in addition to being pretty good. And it was a wild pitch. And I turned around to Joe Morrow and I said, time out. And he goes, time. And the other coach comes screaming out of the dugout, what do you mean you can't call time out? That's a live ball. And the ball's back at the screen. I said, and Joe says, he called time. I said, wait a minute, you're the umpire, you called time. I can't call time. It was a big feud. I don't even remember what happened, but that's a true story, right? And we almost got away with it. But there were a lot of funny things as well as great things. And some of the great things I remember also, and these are the days that there was no three-pointer. I mean, I'm not blowing smoke, but Randy, we played Eastern. You talk about a rivalry in town. We played Bristol Eastern. They had a big team, very tall team. And Randy scored the first 13 points of the game. Vinny Punzo was the coach. He called timeout, and they didn't know what the hell was going on. I mean, how could a little school like this be off to this start? And we eventually lost the game. It was probably like, I think it was like 100 to 79 or something like that. And they had a good team, but we put a scare into them more than once. There was a baseball game. There was a 9-run last inning comeback to win a varsity game. And we had that. The headline is somewhere here. That was a great one. We played against Goodwin Tech. I'll never forget that. We went in with suit jackets and ties at Goodwin Tech in New Britain. And they were shooting spitballs at us as we came in. They had motorcycle jackets on, and we were walking in, we're getting all over. And like, wow, this is a rough place to play a game. And we were behind, and we caught up, and with a minute to go, they had the ball, they held it. One guy, his name was John Frito, threw a hook shot at the buzzer, creased the board, and went in. We're done. And Longo says, I never forget, he says, don't worry about it, we didn't lose this game. I don't know what that meant. It was too close to call. And again, you know, there were some guys like a guy named Steve Scatina. There was Franny Serator. There's some other guys. There's no three-point line. I mean, I heard Billy Roccanello's name every day for 4 years. I never met the guy until tonight. Why can't you be like Billy Roccanello? Why you gotta try this jump shot? Honest to God. But there were guys that scored 30 or more points. And I'll not mention one, Dave Powers, somebody mentioned his name earlier. He scored 40 points in Boston Garden in a preliminary game to the Celtics that Frank took us to. You know, he took us there. We played before the Knicks. I mean, I remember Johnny Egan in the Knicks game, and I couldn't believe we were playing on that same court. Keene, New Hampshire, all kinds of places. And I remember Phil's game he talked about. I was there. I was at the 60s game. I was in 5th grade. I'll never forget. I cried that night. But I can tell you that Phil, I think, was toward a lot. They were undefeated. He scored 9 points, all foul shots. But it was a controlled game that night, and they just got so frustrated that they just gave it up.
Let me stop you there. Do you remember what happened at the end of that game? It was a tournament games. St. Anthony's High School versus Turtle at Rockville High School. Does anybody remember what happened when the game ended? Remember that a bunch of hoodlums from Turtle stormed onto the floor and attacked the referees.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Well, then you could have been there.
But that's pretty much all. I did have Bugsy as my freshman coach, Maury was the JV, I would have had made there, you know, we had, Porky Vieira for our teacher in grammar school. How can you go wrong? Great place to be. I've never second guessed my opportunity that I went there, and I would do it again.
You know, we've talked about a lot of people who both played at St. Anthony's and had a hand and a role in developing the athletic program. The one person we haven't mentioned is Julie Larice. Julie was the guy who somehow found a way for us to have all of the things we needed to be able to play. He was one of the major benefactors. He was also one of the major promoters. And you know, when you think about St. Anthony's, you got to think about all of those people that really created the opportunity for us.
Yes, Tom?
Does anybody remember talking about great feats at St. Anthony's? It was our senior year. Bobby Pons pitched a no-hitter against Terryville High School.
How's it feel?
In Muzzy Fields. It was a night game. It was the first time St. Anthony's High School had played a night game.
And that game at Muzzy Field. Yeah, Bobby Pons was very good.
I think that's when Martino tagged the guy out.
The guy overran home plate.
He punted and Stevie Martino got the ball, but that was that game.
Now, what happened was he missed home plate and he went past it, and Martino was covering home because there was a rundown or something, and he had the ball, and the guy was going to try to get back to home plate, and he said, "Where are you going?" I have one other story, but I'll defer to Danny McHenry.
Just one other name, I think, Phil, you were mentioning Tom before, or Penny, on defense, Tom Donato. Yeah. And Tom was quite an influence in my life. And I'll tell you a quick story, nothing to do with sports, but my freshman year, we had numerical grades on the report cards. And I got all 90s, and I got a 78 in general science in his class. I went running downstairs, run up to his desk, Mr. Donato, I almost made high honors. All I need is an 80. I need 2 points. And he said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Next marking period, if you work, you'll get it." And I told that story, and I told it to him while he was alive. And what an influence. That moment, I talk about it all the time, told my kids about it.
Did you make it the next time?
I made it.
I think
You promised me you'd tell that story about.
No, it was fake news. It was fake news. See, I believe we were playing Litchfield, and I believe Jerry Kuchar put the ball in the wrong basket. But I've been corrected by Jerry and John. It was Litchfield that put the ball in the wrong basket.
Right, Litchfield, they lined up in the wrong way, Litchfield put the ball in the wrong basket, and St. Anthony won by 2 points.
And I like my version better.
Yeah, Frank?
I'm from Caryville. Nobody's booing.
Ooh.
I want you to know, though, that those were some big rivalries. I was there from 58 to 62 and had some good times at St. Anthony's. There were big clashes all the time. We sent several Caryville guys to St. Anthony's.
Yeah. Don Skolenka and John Swick was the name too.
Leon Makowitz, yes.
Yeah.
He fouled out of a game. Remember, we played at Manchester. And here's two teams from this side of the river going to Manchester. And he fouled out. Terryville was winning. Points to the scoreboard. And somebody ran out.
We know who that was. That was the famous near riot at Manchester High School when the police had intervened and a couple of people almost got arrested. And that guy who ran across the court after Mackens was supposed to be here tonight with Pat Angelis and Steve Martino, but they didn't drive it. Are they here?
Steve,
They are here. I didn't know they were here.
I
Well, one of those guys that came up from the shoreline is the guy that ran across the court and chased Makowitz down. And Makowitz ran down to the end of the bench and hid behind Bill Zakruski, the coach.
I'm over here, John.
What's that?
I'm over here.
Oh, okay, Bob. I was saying, didn't see you guys sneak in. Yeah, with the trench coat. One last story I thought was a good one. Maury used to meet Bugsy at Danny's house on Divinity Street to walk down to get to the bus to go to the away games. Can you imagine nowadays asking players to walk that distance to go get a bus to go to an away game? But they used to do that. So they're going down Divinity Street. Mike says, I want to get an ice cream in Novak. No, Mike, we're going to be late. We're going to be late. Now I'm going in and get an ice cream. You better hurry up. Don't worry, they're not going to leave without us. They go inside Novak's, he gets an ice cream cone. They come out, and there goes the bus up Park Street. True story. Somebody else had their hand up. Crane.
I think we ought to mention Danny Valerio a little bit also. Danny was in
Valerio.
elementary school. You know, he did so much for all, coached all the sports, drove the bus, he did everything.
He was a miracle worker. That guy managed to keep that old bus running safely up and down those hills to Litchfield during the winter months. And
You know, he would drive it, he was the mechanic. He was a miracle worker. Not to mention how many years he coached the grammar school baseball team then.
We were supposed to get a new bus, we all collected those.
Green
stamps.
That was just like the gym fund that was going to build the gym. That people used to contribute to.
One last thing.
The gym never was built.
Sometimes the varsity kids would come down to Callis School when we were practicing, all right? And that's the first time I met Maury. Little guy, and he was with some of the varsity players, and he's telling them, I'm going to dunk the ball. And he goes, what? They're looking at him, you can't dunk the ball. You're not going to dunk the ball. He says, I'm going to dunk the ball. So I'm saying, what's he going to do? How the hell's he going to dunk the ball? So he's the side basket at Callis School. He jumps up, grabs the net, and chins himself up. That's it. This guy's
Maury has one more story.
When Frank Longa, he was great. We were probably the best dressed basketball team in the country. Because he would go get all these people and say, would you donate a shirt to this one team? So in my senior year, tournament time, he wanted us all to have a warm-up shirt under our warm-up jackets and with our names on it. So Mr. Labadia sponsored my shirt, which I still have to this day. But let me tell you, that shirt cost me a ton of money. Every time we'd go out for supper, Eric would go, remember the time I didn't get it? So I'd say, all right, I'll pick up the tab. That's true.
Bob points out the fact that my freshman team and his freshman team were coached by Roland Dumont, which was quite a thing at that time because Roland was a great athlete at Bristol High School and Brown University. So we were very pleased to have Roland as our basketball coach, as a freshman basketball coach.
John, we didn't have a bus when I was at St. Andrews.
Didn't have what?
We didn't have a bus.
Oh.
But we had lots of parents that volunteered to drive us. That's how we got there.
You had Bobby that had the Lincoln, and Nicoletti had the Cadillac.
Father, you never had the wood station wagon?
Well, now Frank had one.
Frank with
That, Jerry, we haven't heard from former Mayor Kuchar.
That's Frank, none of it ever been a priest.
Where you go?
First of all, talk about that bus. Whoops. Talk about that bus. Well, when I coached the freshman team, our kids had to push the bus to get it started. You know what happened. But we talk about Mike Boguslawski and his Uncle Joe, who was an umpire. And I have to tell you this story. Mike was trying to be an umpire. He was still in high school, and his uncle was taking and teaching him. So he was practicing. So we got to practice up to polo school. We have to practice, you know, after practice, you know, you have to go down the stairs, get in the shower room, everybody showered in the same place. So Mike stood upstairs, was talking to the coach. So we're in taking a shower. Here's Marino Casino next to me. I forget who else was in there. Mike comes down the stairs and opens the door. As did Marino turned around and he slipped on a bar of soap and he fell flat on his back and Mike went, sick! Vinny Guarda here and myself were walking out of school one day, wintertime, Father Cadeli said, hey, what are you boys doing? Nothing, Father. You want to do a little bit of work? Sure, Father. He goes to the directory, he comes out, he's got 2 shovels. The front of St. Anthony's Church, the sidewalk, he said, you shovel up a little snow, he said, I'll take care of it. Me and Vinny shoveled, so I don't know, hour, 2 hours. Well done, gave him the shovels. He said, now you want to get paid, huh? Then he said, yeah, okay. I said, well, what? He gave me $1, he gave Vinny $1.
Brand new dollars. Brand new dollars.
But I can tell you million stories, but one that stands out and hurt me quite a bit. Playing basketball, I had a pretty good first half. Usually I scored 4 points, 6 points, 10 if I was lucky. But I had a pretty good first half. Halftime, I had a rash. I said, geez, I can't run. It bothered me so much. I don't know who it was, Maury Rivera or Danny. One of them says, Danny, I got something. Put it in your job. He said, you know, soothes and you won't feel nothing.
Stop the chafing?
Well, they put wintergreen in there. My balls are still burning.
It was called Atomic Bomb.
Well, before this deteriorates any further, is there anybody else who would like to say something before we wrap it up?
Bernie O'Keefe.
Bernie? Yeah, Bernie.
Yeah, hi. I don't know how many people, you know, came from St. Anthony's and ended up in Bristol Central, okay? One day when I was teaching there, a kid by the name of, what's your name, Fran?
Francis
Serator, okay? He turns up in my class. The first rumor was he'd been kicked out of St. Anthony's. Obviously, we found out that it was because the school was closing. But the significance is he really made sports come alive, not only in St. Anthony's, but also at Bristol Central. He was a class act there. He was a class act at Central High School. He got an award for sportsmanship, and I'll tell you, maybe it applied to him in basketball, but I'll tell you, I played a lot of tennis with him, and if it was a close call, you know who won.
Hey, Jack, could they introduce themselves that are from St. Anthony's? Remember the people that went to St. Anthony's? Maybe they could just give us their name, etc.
All right, yeah, why don't we have everyone stand and introduce themselves and tell us what year you graduated.
Or attended.
Or attended.
Go ahead, Henry.
Class of 57, Henry Kuchar.
Lenny Guarda, 1958.
Kirk Locklear, 1954.
Jerry Raffanello, 1961.
Carol.
I was waiting for him.
George.
Carol Salzillo Zemko, class of 1959.
Carmen Esposito Valerio, class of 59.
Paul Delavier, 1964.
Gerard Kuchar, 59.
Bill Raffanello, 59. Rick Riedico, 53.
Tony Carrier, 67.
Ray Serator would have been 66, but the school closed.
Same with me, 67, Danny McCary, went over to Central though.
Mike Tazinski, 66.
Tom Lorenzetti, 66.
Next row.
Gene Heinz Dabkowski, 1960. Jerry Ferretti, 61. Carmela Susko McGrail, 63. Valerie Climax Rulo, 66.
Beverly Strong, the class of 1956, and that was the greatest class of
Pat Angela, class of 57.
Wow, Michael.
Yeah.
Pat Elway, 61.
Steve Martino, 59.
Anybody else?
57, Bob Dutton.
John,
What's your class?
Okay, well, I guess we can wrap things up. Thank you all very much for your participation. It was a wonderful night. And make sure you pick up your yearbooks and memorabilia before you leave.